Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with John Tillman, President and CEO of the Illinois Policy Institute. And John, a lot of time is spent by Republicans and conservatives trying to understand why conservative Republican candidates don't do a better job attracting minority voters, Latino voters, African-American voters, Asian voters, why the left continues to enjoy majority support among those communities, despite the fact that, according to kind of quality of life metrics, those communities haven't been terribly well served by the leftists that they support. It's a bit of a conundrum, and it exists here in Illinois and any state with major urban populations and substantial African-American, Latino populations like we have in Illinois.
There's a lot of reasons this goes on, but I think one of them is what I'll call the consultancy class, the people who run political campaigns for candidates, many of them who are especially new candidates. They are completely focused on their consultancy viability, and they see this idea of reaching out to minority populations and newer voting blocks that are not traditionally right of center as high risk, low reward. It's a preposterously stupid point of view, but that's how they operate, and I think that's a big driver of it. I had a conversation with then Congressman Mark Kirk in August of 2009, prior to his run for the Senate. And I asked him this exact question as you just posed it. And the answer I got from him then was the cost per vote is too high. Now, this is about as short-sighted as you can possibly be. And I think that if he was to reflect on that now, would realize that was a bad philosophy.
Well, I mean, there's something to that in the context of an 8 or 10-month campaign. But the longer-term play, particularly somebody who's sitting in office for 6 years, is to say, okay, well, we didn't do a great job in that campaign attracting the kind of numbers we'd like to attract from the Black community or the Latino community, but we've got the next 6 years. Or if you're an ongoing party organization, we have in perpetuity to do a better job. So let's figure out what an approach is and a communication product is that could be effective, that could begin a dialogue, that could lead somewhere over time.
Exactly. And there's both the policy side of this and the political side of this and the human cost side of this. We believe our ideas are better for the poor and disadvantaged, white, black, brown, female, male, or whatever, right? And if you look at urban America in particular, in the city of Chicago in particular, those populations tend to be minority. If you go to rural America, they're obviously white. But the bottom line is, if you believe your ideas are better to help improve the human condition, go make an argument.
Yeah.
Go make an argument.
Pitch them everywhere.
Engage everywhere. And the left, meanwhile, the progressive left, meanwhile, has learned something that is really profound. It started in 2000 and it's really accelerated under Obama, which is they cannot win the presidency without dividing us by these very demographic groups. Obama won 93% of the black vote in 2012. He won 71% of the Hispanic vote in 2012, 67% of single women, and 60% of millennial. Those numbers were all down slightly from 2008. Romney
but
won,
not down slightly enough.
Not down slightly enough, and Romney won 59% of the white vote. The other side of this coin is that white voters are abandoning Democrats in the progressive point of view. So if you're a conservative, the opportunity is continue to build the base. But all you got to do is peel off a few people, 1, 2, 3, 4 at a time in these groups, and you destroy the electoral model of the progressives forever.
All right, and for more on this, we're now joined by our friend DeRoy Murdoch. DeRoy, of course, you know, is a nationally syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor, thoughtful guy. DeRoy, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi there. How are you?
Good. So on this matter of trying to do a better job, if you're a conservative activist, or if you're a conservative Republican candidate for office from the local level to the national level, to do a better job attracting black families, Latino families to the ranks, what is it that you see, even in the context of this current presidential campaign, that isn't being done or isn't being said that should be done or said?
Well, I think conservatives, Republicans, candidates, activists, and so on should have made for years an effort to reach out to black families, black individuals, black business owners, black entrepreneurs, et cetera. And it's something that really should have been taking place for years. And I think the first step is to make the effort to try. Go into black neighborhoods, knock on black doors, go to black civic groups, go to black churches, et cetera. It frustrates me when I see Republican nominees for president for almost any other position, just totally stay out of black neighborhoods. And I think they believe, well, we're not going to win more than 5% of this population. These people are going to vote Democrat no matter what, so why bother? And of course, the Democrats take the black vote for granted, so they don't make much of an effort either. They kind of scare black people into thinking that if you vote for Mitt Romney or something like this, the KKK will come back to life.
Right.
And you'll have lynchings on your corner, and your house will be crosses burning their lawn, and all this nonsense. And so they do a good job of scaring black people every 4 years. They then get 90% of the black vote, 95% of the black vote, and then they turn around and walk away. You don't see them for four more years.
And DeRoy, just to be clear, the Democrat founded KKK.
That is correct.
Right.
The Democrats founded KKK as the terrorist wing of their party back after the Civil War during Reconstruction. And as late as, I think about, 10 years or so, you had, I think even sooner than that, I think 5 years ago or so, Robert Byrd of West Virginia was still a U.S. Senator. He was a very high-level official, if you will, in the KKK. He recruited something like 120, 130 brand new members for the Ku Klux Klan, and he was the Senate Democrat leader for many, many years. And when he passed away, they had a big state funeral, if you will, and there was Obama, of all people, along with Bill Clinton.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Byrd and Obama, because I remember shortly after President Obama was elected to the U.S. Senate in 2006, I was on his email distribution list. I got an email from him trying to raise money for Bob Byrd. I mean,
wow.
It's just, it's one of those things where
that's amazing.
The history doesn't matter, the facts don't matter. Ideology on the left trumps everything.
That's it. I mean, it's one thing to show up at the guy's funeral and say, all right, well, goodbye, but actually to raise money for the man, that is absolutely spectacular. You have a copy of that letter? I'd love to see that.
I'll send it to you.
DeRoy,
that's remarkable.
DeRoy, a good example. Dan has been very engaged in this for a very long time in terms of forging relationships, as have I and the Illinois Policy Institute through our criminal justice reform and other work that we do. But I had this amazing experience that I think illustrates the point you are making about why we have to engage as conservatives across the board with communities that we don't normally. Because what's happening is the other side is indoctrinating them with lies all the time. I had an experience to go to a south suburb in southern Cook County right before Christmas and met with 18 people, all African American, mostly men and a few women, talking about the ongoing carnage in their community with rising property taxes, destroying their home's value. And we had this amazing 2-hour exchange and conversation. It was just wonderful. And as I'm walking out, one of the women came up to me and she said, and it's just amazing to me that she said this, but not surprising. She said, I just want you to know we're just like you. We're just middle-class people who want our communities to be safe and prosperous and to get control of our taxes. We're just like you. And I looked at her and I said, of course you are. That's why I'm here, is because we all want the same things. But she felt she had to tell me that because she's been getting indoctrinated that people like me, who happen to have a different color skin, don't care about people like her. That's why we have to take responsibility and do what we're talking about here.
You're absolutely correct, and I think that there is a potentially receptive audience for the free market limited government message, and I think the pitch is pretty simple. I mean, I think you go to neighborhoods like this, and you ask people the very simple question, what have the Democrats done for you lately? Or how about your schools? Are your kids learning anything? Oh, the schools are terrible. They're not learning a thing. How about economic growth and prosperity? Your neighborhoods are thriving? Oh, they're not thriving. They're in bad shape as far as jobs and economic advancement. How about crime? Is the crime over on the Magnificent Mile? Oh, no, it's down in the south side of Chicago. That's where the mayhem goes on. So you keep voting for Democrats, and you've got schools that don't work, you've got lack of jobs, you've got crime galore. Why do you keep voting Democrat? Why do you keep doing this? Why don't you listen to a different message, which is one that involves safety, prosperity, educational choice, and excellence? And why don't you give that message and those messengers an opportunity to represent you?
We're talking to DeRoy Murdoch. He is a nationally syndicated columnist and a Fox News contributor. I wanted to run this by you because one of the arguments that was offered to me by Deborah Rose, a friend of mine, African-American lady, a radio colleague from years back. We had the same conversation many years ago, and she said, well, one of the things that conservatives, Republicans need to do a better job of is standing up when you should stand up. When there's an inflection point and people are looking for leadership, or there is an injustice and people are looking to see who calls out the injustice and who sits silently by, at least until it's safe to call out the injustice, people take notice of that. And it seems like we have an opportunity here in Chicago right now based on the disintegration of the city that's occurring under Rahm Emanuel and his stonewalling and obstruction on police shooting cases, in addition to, as you were just alluding to, the substantial violent crime rates in disproportionately African-American neighborhoods on the west side and south sides of the city. But we still have a reticence to stand up and speak with one voice. The Illinois Republican Party does, a lot of Republicans. Some are not. But when you don't speak with one voice and when you don't take the opportunity to stand up, even when a lot of the Democrats and the minority legislators who are Democrats are unwilling to do so because they don't want to take on the Chicago Democrat power structure, if we don't intercede in these moments, then we lose an opportunity to change the conversation.
I think you're absolutely correct, and I think there's a terrific opportunity right now for Republicans and conservatives in Chicago and Illinois to stand up with these protesters who are out in front of Rahm Emanuel's house, in front of his office and so on, demanding his resignation. I mean, whatever your views are on Black Lives Matter or what have you, you've got this situation with Laquan McDonald, who was shot multiple times. This guy had the knife. The videotape was hidden for a year, conveniently enough, going past Emanuel's reelection. Probably prosecutorial, perhaps prosecutorial misconduct. Tough phrase to say. And I think it's a great opportunity to stand up and look, say, you may have disagreed with us on previous issues, but we stand with you on this. And I think people would notice that. They'd appreciate it. It would put even more pressure on Rahm Emanuel, a lot of pressure on other Democrats to say, okay, well, why is this Republican congressman or alderman, whoever, showing up, yet the Democrats are staying away? It's a terrific opportunity for people on the right to stand up and be countered with these other people who are complaining appropriately about this egregious situation.
DeRoy, I think one of the reasons some people on the right don't stand up is because they're scared they might say a phrase wrong. They might say a word that the opponents on the left will twist and turn into race baiting and accusing people of being racist. There's that famous 1992 moment with Ross Perot when he went to speak to the NAACP and he used the phrase, "You people," I think was the phrase.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I might have that.
That's
also,
it. Yep.
Right. Remember that? And I happen to know a little bit about this only because in early October last year, during the heat of the governor's race, then Citizen Ronner and I were on a panel together in 2011 discussing minimum wage and made an argument why raising the minimum wage would be bad for African-American kids on the south and west side of Chicago. And the governor's team, then Governor Quinn, the Democrat, took a soundbite, twisted it, and tried to turn it into me being a racist, talking about these people, and pulled a quote from that, and then accused me of being a racist, the Institute of being a racist, and the governor, if he didn't disassociate with the candidate then of being with us, of essentially endorsing racism. And thank God we happen to have, right about ready to go, our latest report on black male employment, all-time low under Governor Quinn. So we came out with that report, and then we did a very careful media campaign, and I essentially accused the Governor Quinn of using race for his personal political gain and how outrageous it was. But it was scary. I remember being nervous. I had butterflies doing that media more than I've ever had in my life because it is a nuclear bomb if you're a white guy talking about this issue. What advice would you give to people who are a little terrified to engage in this?
That's a very good question because you're right. You have to speak very carefully about these things. People on the left get a pretty wide berth. People on the right have a margin of error of about 1 micron, maybe 2 microns.
Right, exactly.
And that's about it. I think one thing to do is if you're going to go speak at a rally or at an event or something, sit down with maybe some of the people on the other side and say, look, here's what I'm planning to say. What do you think? And read them your speech, show them your remarks, and let them say, okay, well, this sounds good. Maybe I wouldn't use that phrase. Try this phrase instead. And at least that'll get you through your prepared remarks more safely. When it comes to impromptu things and answering questions, you probably have to be a little more cautious. But and then if you do say something that doesn't come out appropriately well, I just stand up and say, look, maybe I didn't pick my words as pristinely as people might like, but I was there. I was on the front lines of these people. I was standing with them. Where were you?
Yeah, and
throw it right. You got to throw it right back in their faces twice as hard.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me, you always have to be on offense. Like, right. Speaking of someone who doesn't pick his words artfully most of the time, Donald Trump. But he's always on offense.
Oh, I thought you were talking about yourself.
Well, me too. But let's use a more well-known example. And you know what? No matter what you say, the left uses "you're a racist" as a proxy for "I disagree with you." So no matter how well you choose your words, no matter what the substance of your position or your work product is, they're going to call you a racist because they can't respond to the substance of what you're proposing.
Well, that's right. And another thing we ought to do, because as you say, if it's a rainy day out, it's because of racism. If it's cold outside, it's because it's their knee-jerk reaction to everything. I'd say, look, how sad. Can't you do better than that? I mean, all you can do is play the race card. Can't you do better than that? You're a smart person. This is the only card you have to play. And just ridicule, just mock them for bringing it up at all.
Yeah, I like that.
But the other thing here, I think, and it goes back to the larger point we're making, is if you've had a track record out of the public eye, individually, one-on-one with people in these communities, in the black community in Chicago, the Latino community, if you're going and talking to people who are worried about women's issues, and you're doing this genuinely, sincerely, out of the limelight for months and years in advance, when the moment comes where you might make a misstep or somebody accuses you, you're going to have established trust in that community, and that's the reason that this didn't work for Governor
And people are going to step up for you.
Exactly what happened.
Right.
Exactly what
right.
happened. That's why the long-term investment matters.
You're right, and that's why I think it's important to start doing this now, do it early, do it often, and make alliances with these folks. And they may not agree with you on everything, they'll agree with you on many things. And another important point from an electoral standpoint, and this is something that just baffles me, where Republicans have not been able to figure this out. They'll say, well, we're not going to campaign in black neighborhoods, we'll never win the black vote. Nobody needs to win the black vote. Right. You're not going to get 100% of the black vote, or 50% or 40%. But if you get 15 or 20 or certainly 25% of the vote, you win the election. Because if you take that large a chunk out of the Democrat base, the entire thing falls over onto the ground.
Exactly.
So if you knock on 10 doors and 8 of the 10 people tell you to go to hell, and 2 out of the 10 say, thank you for asking, I'm happy to vote for you, you win the election.
There you go.
Republicans need to understand that, and they haven't figured that out, which I find extremely frustrating. I've been making that point for 20 years now, and it's just like talking to a wall.
He is DeRoy Murdoch, nationally syndicated columnist and Fox News Channel contributor. DeRoy, thanks always for joining us. Pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you.